Welcome to the Oddschecker Royal Ascot Saturday preview podcast and video. I am your host, George Elek, and I am delighted to say that finally we are joined by Oddschecker's very own tipster, Andy Holding. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm very well, yes. Better than I was the first day. We're talking obviously on Wednesday. First day was a bit of a baptism of fire. Didn't really get off to a great start. One or two unlucky horses. Thought Mohatha was very unlucky in the Queen Anne. With a better run, he might have won. But generally speaking, didn't get off to a good start. But much better day two. Had a bit more of a feel for the meeting, where you need to be drawn, what kind of horses to look for. And of course, we started with the 2-year-olds as well. My bread and butter will be the 2-year-olds throughout the week. And the first one's on the board with Tactician, who was a very good winner of the Windsor Castle.
Yeah, very good indeed. So 2 winners for you today, Hucum and Tactical, as you say. And yeah, as I mentioned, we've missed you on this podcast, Andy. So we're really happy that we can get you back on. I'm sure Oddschecker viewers and listeners are very happy to have you back as well. But before we get into it, just going to tell everybody, as ever, to download the Oddschecker app. I think anyone who's been using it for the last couple of days will know how important it is to get the best prices, the best bookie offers, the best tips from Andy, of course, and Daryl Carter, who we had on the other day's previews. We've done previews for Tuesday and Wednesday, a couple of winners in those. We've got Thursday coming up tomorrow, which we've recorded. We've done Friday as well. This is for Saturday. And the Oddschecker app is the most and smartest way to bet for the shrewdest of punters. Andy, we're going to get into things straight away. You banged in 2 winners, so you're the man in form, we can say again, after that, with one unlucky runner earlier in the Queen Anne, as you mentioned. And we're going to start with the first race of the day, 8 races on Saturday. And we'll start with the Wokingham. And it's interesting you saying that you had a bit of bad luck in the Queen Anne, because the first question I want to ask you is about the draw. We're seeing a massive draw bias towards the stand side in the first couple of days. Horses on the far side having to come right the way over to get in contention. Or, if they stay on that side, we saw Card Sharp earlier being way out in front halfway down and finishing absolutely nowhere. So how important is it at this stage, when you're looking at these big field handicaps down the straight, to focus on the horses with a high draw?
Well, obviously this podcast is for Saturday purposes, and with the rain that we've got due tomorrow, as we speak on Wednesday, into Thursday, into Friday, and there's forecast for a big band of weather to come through on the Saturday, this could easily change. So we have to take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt, take it day by day. But at this very moment in time, as speaking Wednesday evening, it very much looks as though the stand side has a big bias, which is a little bit contentious, really, because, Chris Nicholls has had about the thick end of 3 or 4 months to get this ground right. And it looks as though there is a huge advantage. And that's got to stick. Not so happy with those that have had a low draw. They haven't had really much of a level playing field. You look at Mohatha, my horse in the Royal Hunt Cup, who was drawn 5. I think he was probably pound for pound the best horse in the race, but that stalled position meant he had to come across, use up petrol, lost a lot of ground to come over towards the stand side rail. You can mark him up as a moral winner. So I think as the meeting goes on, you'll probably see a lot of the jockeys maybe wanting to come all the way over and try and come over to the near side. But as it stands at the moment, you definitely want to be looking towards high drawn horses.
Well, in the first, Ed Walker and Andrea Atzeni will be hoping that things do change in that respect, because they have the favourite in Swindler in the Sandringham, who's drawn in 2. He's 15-2. Blue Mist is 9-1. Aplomb 10-1. Nahar 14-1, alongside Burmese Waltz. A whole host of horses 16-1 or bigger as well. So Andy, the Sandringham, tricky race to pick the winner of. Who's catching your eye at the moment?
Well, I think these consolation prizes are very useful for connections that obviously miss out. And, when you consider that the top horse is Swindler's rated 96, that's a far cry from yesteryear, when a horse like that would probably be midway up the field in the Wokingham. So it just tells you how the times have changed. But unfortunately, as it stands at the moment, Ed Walker's Charge has got that stall position of 2, which doesn't look all that ideal. Yes, he's a good course and distance horse, and he's got a shed load of talent. But I think you need to be looking at double-figure draw. And I think William Haggis has got a very strong hand here. If the rain does come, and it is forecast to come in some quantities throughout the week, the chances of a plum will improve quite significantly. This horse definitely likes to get his toe in. And I thought it was a bit of an eyebrow raise the first time out when I saw this horse running over 5 furlongs on firm ground at Newmarket behind Mackinac. And I watched his run through. He was sent off favourite, but I thought, well, he's not going to win over 5 furlongs. And obviously he didn't. But At the same time, he ran a race full of promise, finishing 5th, doing all his best work at the end. And if you go back and look at his run last season when he finished 2nd to Tinto, that form looks really hot. Tinto won first time out at Newmarket. The time figure was very fast, and that was on soft ground. So if he does get his conditions, he's got course and distance form twice over. He also finished 2nd on his previous visit this time last year. I think he ticks a lot of boxes. He's drawn double figures, which means he can probably come down the middle. I think probably near side to middle probably be the best place to challenge on the track as the week progresses. You probably want to get on some fresh ground a little bit. So he's got a big chance. And the other one to mention is this Nahar, a colt also trained by William Haggas. He's got that combined talent of being useful over 6 furlongs, but also stay 7. It looks as though he needed the run first time out over the Railing Mile at Newmarket when behind, blown by wind. He's sure to come on for the run. So at this very moment in time, I think William Haggas holds all the aces. If the ground stays as it is, then Nahar. But if it does go soft, and that is the prediction, then that Aplomb has got a major chance, and probably even go off favourite come Saturday.
Aplomb 10-1. Tom Marquand, former Oddschecker ambassador, jocked up as well. A brilliantly promising jockey, and we wish him all the best this week. Aplomb 10-1 with Hills, Nahar 14-1 with Bet365 and Ladbrokes. But from what Andy's saying, especially if the rain comes at 10-1, about Aplomb will not be lasting for too long. Let's hope it wins with Aplomb as well, Andy. Moving on to the second race of the day, and it is the Queen Mary. Somewhat more your bread and butter, I would say here. No pressure though at all. More beautiful is the 2-1 favourite. Campanelle for Wesley Ward, 9-2, always a danger. His mount, 6-1 Sacred, 10-1 Happy Romance. The brilliantly named Dicky Dudar, 14-1 alongside Sands of Time, 16-1 Bar. Couple of interesting looking runners at the top end of the market. Where are you looking?
Well, the time figures are very much following the patterns of the betting here. For those of us that do keep speed figures on 2-year-olds, the best filly so far over in Ireland, and indeed these shores, based on pure numbers, is the favourite, More Beautiful. Hugely impressive first time out when winning at Naas. Quicken up very smartly. Did a great sectional, a quicker sectional than Skeptical did when winning the Group 3 contest over 6 furlongs a few hours later. So she's obviously very high class. She is by Warfront, so that would be a little bit concerning at this stage if we're prepared to back her now. I think you probably want to wait and see what the ground's like on Saturday, but she's got a good draw potentially, stall 18. We know that she's the fastest filly in the race, and the Queen Mary often goes to the classy, sexy horses. Sacred's the best of the fillies over here, of the homegrown talent. She was a big drifter first time out at Newmarket, 4-1 out to 11-1, but it didn't stop her winning. Her time figure was good, and the form subsequent to that race at Newmarket has worked out really well. Bungle Up in Blue, Happy Romance, who were 3rd and 6th respectively, were 1st and 2nd at Sandown the next day. Time Scale, who was 7th when I won at Chepstow on Monday, and indeed Risque, who was 8th, has also won subsequently. So the time figures worked out well. Those that have experience come out of their race and prove that form is very much worth its weight in gold. And Sacred couldn't have won any easier. Quickened up really smartly, and William Haggas looks as though he's got a really good filly on his hands there. So if you didn't want to take a short price about More Beautiful, you might want to look at Sacred. And you'd also consider maybe Happy Romance as well, another horse I mentioned in passing there. If the draw switches over towards the far side, which it might do, I don't know, like I say. I thought she was wildly impressive when she won at Sandown the other day. And she didn't get the best of runs first time out in that race. It was won by Sacred. So they look the 3 main players. The market's very much surrounding those. Obviously, notwithstanding the Wesley Ward filly, who could be up to scratch. But obviously, Wesley had 2 runners the first day, which didn't quite hit the ball out the park. So we're just a little bit on the back foot, perhaps, with Wesley's horses at the moment. So I think the market is absolutely spot on here. More Beautiful, the right favourite. If it's fast ground, I think she'll win. If it goes on the easy side or there's a draw switch, I'd certainly have a look at Happy Romance currently each way around about the 10-1 mark.
Yeah, as you say, Happy Romance 10-1, as short as 6-1 elsewhere as well. 10-1s with Paddy's, Betfair, BetVictor, and Bet365. BetVictor and Bet365 both a 5th or 4 at the moment. You'd think that a few other firms might join them, but that's at time of recording at 5:30 on Wednesday afternoon. More Beautiful 2-1 with 365, Sky Bet, Ladbrokes, and Betfred as short as 11-8 elsewhere as well, which could be a sign of things to come. Just a quick, before we move on, just a quick one, Andy. Given that you have an edge undoubtedly in these 2-year-old races, and your record over the past couple of years certainly shows that. I mean, Wesley Ward, I heard during the ITV coverage today, had 10 winners at Royal Ascot in 10 years. So do you just have to, because it's impossible for you to really assess the form of these horses coming over here, kind of looking at their solitary runs over in the States. If this Campanelle turns out to be a superstar, you just have to hold your hands up and say, well, I was never going to spot that anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's no way of assessing the American horses when they come over here because the time figures over there are different. They're on different ground, different time of year. What my approach to it is just a real cutthroat approach. They're either all good and they're all going to win, or they're all no good and they're not going to win. So, having seen the first race, they've all run below par. There's half a chance that trend might follow throughout the week. So straight away, I'm looking at a Wesley Walker horse now, and I'm just completely writing it off. But their price is kind of factored into the betting as obviously having a major chance when probably they might not have a stronger chance as that market suggests. So they're actually making the market for the UK horses. So if you take Campanelle out of the field, you're getting some really good value against sort of Sacred and Happy Romance who run at a very high level on the grass over here. So I think it's a good opportunity really for UK punters to get stuck in and take advantage of Wesley Ward horses, perhaps not being up to scratch.
Absolutely, especially with those 4 places, because you take out Campanelle there and you've only got 3 runners at just 2 runners at single figure prices. So
exactly,
interesting angle there. On to the Coventry as well. Next up, Admiral Nelson is the 11-4 favourite. Carder 11-2, Creative Force 13-2, Lauded 9-1, Talbot 12-1, Existent 14-1, alongside Dark Lion and Army of India at the same price. And an interesting horse, Science, for Archie Watson at 16-1, who's just done on the Bob on debut. Again, this is another one right up your street, Andy. 2-year-olds with just 1 run generally under their belt. Solve it for us. That's all we want to know.
Yeah, this race is like manna from heaven for me because the numbers I think will hopefully whittle down the field quite considerably. I can look at perhaps 3 or 4 rather than looking at the whole 16. I think, well, that can't win. That's not a fast time. That won't stay. Not really sure about that. And already I've got like a pecking order of like 3 or 4. I was very impressed with Admiral Nelson and Carder when they both won their respective races at the Curragh and Newbury, but their time figures really didn't add up. They went very slowly at the Curragh. Yes, this horse travelled well and quick and well, but he's obviously got to do it in a deeper race. Now, he might well do, but at 5-2, I don't really want to be taking that kind of price to find out. Similar comments apply to Quadra, who quickened really well in the last furlong, and his last furlong section was really good when he won very tidily at Newbury. But again, it was a very slowly run race, so they're in deep here against in a race where they're going to go a much quicker pace. And of course, that the draw with Cardiff is not overly appealing in still 4. So I'm looking outside the box here. And I'm looking at these races where some of them have already had running very strong times. And if you look down the list, number 5 on the race card as we speak, a horse called Dark Lion was sent off favourite at Newmarket to win a very hot maiden, won by Creative Talent. He just was all at sea going down into the dip. He didn't really know what he was doing. But once he met the rising ground, I thought he came on very strongly. He's drawn his stall 15, which could be handy. And he looks a really thick-set, robust type that will improve for the first run and indeed a stiff track. So odds around about 12-14-1 for him. I think Dark Line is very much worth a second look. And also in the same race, also called Saika from the John Gosden side. And it's interesting that Frankie would have probably had the choice because he rode both Existent and Saika first time out in their respective race. And he's chosen Existent, which didn't run badly in his race at Newmarket. But I thought Saika, the one that he's left alone here, ran a really encouraging race behind Creative Talent. He also, similar to Dark Line, didn't really know what he was doing going down into the dip, but he stayed on very high catching lead once reaching the rising ground. He's 25-1. If he'd have been drawn a little bit higher, I think he would have been a really good bet. Still might have a few quid on him at that price. The other one to mention is Talbot. Now, this horse won at Lingfield first time out in the all-weather, over 5 furlongs, but his last 2 furlong sectionals were much better than the older horse 5 furlong sprinters on the same card, and there was 2 more of them. I'd be pretty confident that he'll outrun his odds. Brian Menas missed the Windsor Castle, missed the Norfolk. He's decided to come here, stepping the horse up in trip. He obviously feels as though he will get the 6 furlongs, and on his numbers at Lingfield and the way he finished, I certainly think he's going in the right direction with that thought process. So those are my 3 against the field at this current moment in time. 12-1 Dark Lion, 25-1 Saika, 12-1 Talbot. Pay your money, take your choice out of them 3, but they're all running very fast times, and they all look as though they'll stay, and that they seem to have the right mental attitude and the right sort of profile I look for a Coventry winner.
And again, an eye-catching jockey booking on Talbot. Asheen Murphy rode him on debut, but Tom Marquand jocked up again this time, riding for Brian Meehan. Not necessarily a combination that we're used to seeing, but Talbot is 12-1 with 365 Betfair Sportsbook, Bet Victor and Paddy Power. Dark Line 14-1 is just with Bet365, so that's standout as we speak. and Saika at 25-1. And as Andy mentioned, I know a fair few people take a lot of weight in terms of what horses jockeys choose to ride. But as we saw with Lord North earlier, Frankie doesn't always get it right, does he? The market knew.
No.
The race panned out the way that the market suggested, but Frankie chose to ride the other one from the yard as well. So maybe not too much weight to be put in there. Saika 25-1 at the moment with Betfair Sportsbook and Paddy Power. And I must say, Andy, when you're telling me that the two at the top of the market in a 2-year-old race at Ascot haven't done great times, I get very excited indeed. And I'm sure the listeners and the viewers do as well. On now to the Coronation, the Fillies Group 1. Quadrilateral is the 11-4 favourite. Much shorter elsewhere. Short is 2-1, but 11-4 currently with Bet365. Run Wild is 9-2. Alpine Star 5-1. Sharing 6-1. Cloak of Spirits 13-2. So Wonderful 12-1. And Love Locket 16-1. Sadly, Andy, you and I both hate this, but only 7 runners. Where are you looking?
Usually no bet races. That's my sort of golden rule. There's been a few 7-runner races so far at Royal Ascot. Of course, the big race today on the Wednesday was only 7 runners, so I left that one out. And I might just well leave this one out, but we've still got to deal with the race and try and give a selection all the same. Quadrilateral was slightly disappointing, you'd say, in the Guinness to many, but I still think it was a creditable enough run, and maybe Gran that was a bit too firm for her. But if the rain do come, and it is predicted to come in some quantities, I think it'll probably be good to soft at the very best, if you like, come Saturday, and that'll certainly help her, because when she won the Fillies Mile on the over on the Rowley Mile in October last year, she was really good, and her stamina came into play. And they're likely to go good pace here as well. That's another interesting aspect to this race. I'd imagine James Doyle will be giving instructions on John Gosden's charge to really press on, because she stays 1.25 miles when she won the Pretty Polly in devastating time, recording a fast speed figure. She's drawn his stall 1, and I imagine that will go off really well to try and draw the stamina out of the rest. And that will certainly set it up for the closers like Quadrilateral, and perhaps Cloak of Spirits, of course, was second in the Guineas herself. So Wonderful ran really well in the Irish 1000, finishing 3rd. She's yet to win in 9 starts, unbelievably So Wonderful. And yet she's been placed in so many of these good Group 1s. I'm sure her day will come very soon. And Alpine Star represents a stable who hasn't really hit the ground running with her fillies. Albini, of course, was a bit disappointed in the Irish 1000. Similar comments applying to Millal in the English version over in Newmarket. So perhaps 5-1 might be a little bit too skinny for her at this very stage. So if you're looking for a bet really for me here, I'll probably look at Run Wild. I think if James Doyle gets the fractions right from the front, we know that she stays well. She goes a good gallop, and maybe she might just have the stamina or requisite stamina to see them off. But 7, like I say, 7 runners at this very moment in time, not absolutely massively appetising.
James Doyle with 2 winners today, both brilliant rides on Lord North and Tactical, and John Gosden been in fantastic form since racing restarted, really, and certainly over the last couple of days. So Andy, there, not with a tip necessarily, but if I gave you a free £10 bet, you would go and Run Wild at 9-2.
Yes, yeah, it would do. Yeah, I think that's the value at this very moment in time. There
we have it, 9-2, widely available across most bookies, but as we say, just the 2 places if you're backing each way. So be wary before you back it each way. The 3 o'clock, the 5th race of the day, is the St James Palace Stakes, another Group 1, and a really interesting market looking at this right now, and a tough one to try and break down. But luckily we have the very man to do so. Wichita and Pinatubo are the 2-1 joint favourites. Palace Pier is 4-1, and Threat comes next at 10-1, 14-1 Positive, 16-1 Arizona, and 50-1 is Royal Dornoch. How many runners? 7 runners.
Yes, a sad 7, as they call it.
It is indeed. Lots of our hearts sinking this morning as the final decks came out. But, Pinatubo, let's start with here before we necessarily talk about where the value lies elsewhere. Because Pinatubo, it'd be unfair to say that Pinatubo bombed out. But given that we hoped just a couple of weeks ago that we may be looking at a horse, the most exciting 2-year-old we'd seen since Frankel, hoping that we were going to see the most exciting horse we'd seen since Frankel as a 3-year-old. Didn't run without credit at all, but did not follow up last season with another victory. So how do you assess Pinatubo coming into this one?
Well, I think the general public were hoping that Pinatubo would be the horse that we saw last year, but personally speaking, I was rather hoping he wasn't going to be. As it panned out, Kamiko obviously floored him, which was a good result for the Oddschecker followers. We'll get a good chance to see one or two lines of form moving on for Saturday early on in the week. If you fancy the second favourite, one of the strong market leaders here, Palace Pier, then Acquitted runs in the Golden Gates Handicap actually on Thursday, and he's 4-1 favourite there. So he was second to John Gosden's charge at Newcastle. So obviously, as we stand, the form will be played out early on in the week. But the Guineas is obviously the best form coming into this race. It always is for the St James's Palaces. It's often a rerun, and it all depends which horse has gone forward the most from that first run to second. Of course, the ground as well will be a significant factor. If it is on the easy side, I think it'll suit Pinatubo better than perhaps Wichita or Arizona. That certainly seems to be the way it's played out in the history when they've met before. And I wouldn't really sort of chastise Pinatubo too much. He probably got there a little bit too soon. Obviously, he was the favourite. There was a lot of pressure on Buick riding him that day, and he wanted to cover the pace. And I think in hindsight, he maybe went a little bit too soon and got involved in the hottest part of the race, whereas Oisin Murphy sat off it, sat chilly, and then decided to pounce late on. And he had a horse that clearly stayed really, really strongly. But you couldn't say Pinatubo took a massive backward step. It might be that he's run very similar to the level that he did last year. Others perhaps just caught him up. But
in summary, if the ground's on the soft side or they get the rain that's he's forecast, then I think he probably will turn the form around with Wichita. I just think because he's got plenty of form on that kind of ground. His Dewhurst wins very much suggests that he can slog it out. We know that he gets through that ground really well. So I think he's probably just about a worthy favourite on balance.
I'm just going to mention another friend of the podcast, a friend of Oddschecker, Mike Spence, who you've done a few of these pods and videos with. He owns, or his dad, I should say, owns Positive, who in his penultimate run, he beat Kamiko, who went on to win the Guineas. Since then, put in a poor performance behind Pinatubo. Given the form of Kamiko, can we look at Positive possibly bigger price at 14s, or is Kamiko now just a different horse and you've got to kind of put a line through that form?
Yeah, I think so. I think Kamiko's improved quite immeasurably since that Sandown run. I actually put up Positive to win or to go really close in the Dewhurst, but he bombed out really badly. Whether that was down to the soft ground or he just wasn't good enough, or a combination of both, I don't know. But it's his first run back. The one thing we can say is Clive Cox's horse is now in good form, and he does go into the race fresh, obviously not having a hard race as some perhaps have in the Guineas, but on what he did at Newmarket back in the Dewhurst on soft ground, and it looks like it might be on the easy side come Saturday. I think he's got a little bit to find, and his odds reflect that.
Sorry, Mike, if you're listening, but fingers crossed.
Sorry,
Andy's proved wrong. Onto the 3:35 now. Another Group 1, the Diamond Jubilee. We have Skeptical is the 9-4 favourite ahead of Hello Youmzain at 4-1. One Master 7-1. Cardim 15-2. Dream of Dreams 9-1. 14-1 Bar. Top of the market here, Skeptical. 9-4 a fair price.
But plenty short enough if it does rain. All his best form at the moment, what we've seen of him, has been on the fast surface. Obviously, Dundalk, I think he won 3 or 4 there. Looked spectacular. Was really good when he won first time out on the grass. And obviously, he's given Connections a bit of a headache. Do they go for both the King's Stand, or do they go try and double up here, or do they just come here? I think they might have made the right decision given what Batash did in the King's Stand Stakes. He hit the ball out of the park on the figures. But if it does rain, we just don't know where we stand. So at the moment, he's probably a horse that you need to wait till the day to see what the conditions are before you dive in. I just don't think there's any mileage in taking 94 at this stage. He's not going to get any shorter. If the rain does come, then I certainly think the filly at the bottom, One Master's got a better chance than her current odds suggest. She would need it really soft to be as effective over 6 furlongs as she is over 7. She probably is a 7 furlong filly. In fact, she ran in the Queen Anne last year when she finished third, of course, to Lord Glitters. But her run beyond Don Juan Triumphant on Champions Day certainly gives her a chance. When she didn't get the clearest of runs that day in the hands of Patrick Boudoir. But I do think that the Haggis team, by the sound of it, really do fancy their chances. They decided to not go for the Queen Anne again this year, bypassing that to take on board this race, thinking that a strongly run 6 furlongs first run off the bat is probably going to suit her better than trying to stretch her out to a mile. So I think, like I say, she's around about 7-1, isn't she, at the time recording, George?
Yeah, it's 7-1 with Bet365, Paddy's and Sportsbook. And
the draw might not be that significant here. The stalls are going to be in the centre, so they're likely to stay in the middle of the track. So stall 3 of 10. It's not there's 20, 25 runners and they split and there's a big bias either way. I think they'll go down the straight as a gun barrel down the middle. So I wouldn't be bothered about stall 3. And the yard's in great form. So, yeah, I think she's a decent each-way bet this current moment in time.
4 places at the moment with Sky Bet, but as ever, I reckon a few bookies will be following suit. You might even possibly get 5 on the day, maybe if someone's feeling generous. One Master is 7-1, as I say, with Bet365's Betfair Sportsbook and Paddy Power. And on both the Oddschecker app and on the grids, you can see what place markets bookies are offering. That is the Diamond Jubilee, absolutely motoring through these, Andy. Just 2 races left of Ascot. Can't believe it. The Wokingham is next, the 4:10. And we have Mubaka is the 8-1 favourite at the time of recording. I'm not sure that price is going to hang around for long, to be honest. 5s and 6s most places. So we'll go for those. I think those are the prices that are live. 6-1. Bielsa is 8-1. That's with Betfred. Highland Dress 16-1. A whole host of horses 16-1. And Bigger, I think 24 run here at the moment. A tough one to pick apart. Are you looking at the top end of the market or anything at a bigger price catching your eye?
No, I think similar to the Coventry Stakes, I think there's a bit of value to be had here in this race. If you look a little bit further down the list than Mubaka, I think that 8-1 on offer. I think whatever bookmaker's gone 8-1 needs to stay at 8-1 and be very, very brave, because if the rain does come, that's Mubaka's chances very much diminished. His only bad run in his life came on turf here at Ascot on soft ground towards the back end of last season when he just didn't hammer the ground. He's obviously an all-weather horse, but looks like he's by Speightstown. That's very much tells you all you need to know about him. He was really good when he won at Newcastle, but he looks an all-weather horse to me. So I think if you're a layer, a bookmaker, you've got 20-odd runners running for you and soft ground and drawn stall 2. That's going to be a tough ask for Mubaka. Take him on, yeah. I'd probably go down the tried and trusted formula here of backing horses that have run well over the track before under such conditions. And the standout horse for me would be Summergand, who ran a really good race on probably ground a little bit too lively for him last year in the Woking when he finished a creditable 5th. He subsequently finished 2nd in the Great St Wilfrid behind the rapidly improving, if you remember at the time, Dakota Gold. And he ran really well first time out this year when he finished 2nd. The O'Mara team are in good form. Strongly run 6 furlongs here at Ascot, as he's proven time and time again suits him. And he's double figures 12-14-1. That's a massive price. One a little bit further down the list, number 19 on the card, Lethal Lunch, is another viable outsider. Tongue time for the first time for the informed Clyde Cox team. He was a bit unlucky behind Swindler when he ran here on his last start last season at Ascot, when he was trying to go for a run and got cut off at the pass. He subsequently ran really well on the all-weather in recent times. And excuse me, he's also got that vital component which a lot of horses need when you win a Wokingham. He stays 7 furlongs really well. You want a combination of good speed up for 6, stamina for 7, and he ticks that particular box as well. There's loads of others you can mention, the likes of Danzino, Bielsa, Spanish City, who's a regular here in these races. But at this current moment in time, if you gave me 2 bets, I'd perhaps split my stakes on Summergand at 12-1 and 33-1 for Lethal Lunch, which looks a massive price.
Andy, you've got to get Oddschecker on your phone or your laptop, because you've got 16-1 for Summergand if you're betting with Bet365 for 5 places there.
That'll do for me
as well. And Lethal Lunch 33-1 at time of recording. That's with Betfair Sportsbook and Paddy Power. You mentioned off air that the one race you didn't necessarily have a selection for was the Queen Alexandra, the conditions race. But even so, we will talk through it, and hopefully people looking for a bet can glean something from your wisdom. So Mekong is the 11-4 favourite with William Hill, who dares wins at 7-2. The Grand Vizier, who made us a lovely payday this time last year at a big price, is 4-1. Nate the Great 13-2. Fun Mac 11-1. 14-1. Impfal 33-1. And Bigger the rest. So it looks like, according to the odds at least, it's kind of a 6-runner race. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it often goes like that. The Queen Alexandra, the cream often comes to the top. What you tend to get is group horses running against some recreational, full fun day out horses, and then you get the 1 or 2 national hunt horses chucked into the mix as well. The standout form is Mekong. That run behind Call, the Wind over in Riyadh just stands out. I mean, you look at the horses who were in behind him that day, the likes of Call to the Bar, Twilight, Payment, Cross Counter. It was a Group 1 all been up but name, even though it was a handicap. The key to Mekong is the ground. He does need it soft. So you've got a positive there if he does ride. And the negative would be Jamie Osborne. who's gone on a bit of a long losing run. He hasn't had a winner this season so far. I think he's 0 from 26 and counting. So you got positive with the ground, positive with his form, and a negative with the yard. So you need to keep an eye on Jamie Osborne's horses if you're thinking about taking a short price about Mekong. And then you come on to the sort of gnarled stayers like Who Dares Wins, who's better known for his exploits over hurdles, of course, during the winter. The Grand Vizier, who won the Ascot Stakes last year, looks as though he's been laid out for the race by Ian Williams. Fun Mac is a regular in this race. He stays really well. And the interesting one is the one down the bottom here, Nate the Great, stepping up markedly in trip, but ran in a good time figure first time out behind the Trader. That form looks really good. That was the first run since leaving Archie Watson and being gelded. So he looks as though he might go the right way. And if they don't go particularly quick, which could be the order of the day here in the last race, then it might just play into his hands because he has got obviously 2 mile stroke 1 mile 6 tactical speed. But at this very moment in time, I'm just hoping I haven't got to get out of jail and on the Queen Alexandra.
Fingers crossed. I'm sure you won't, Andy, if you carry on your form like today. Before I let you go, I'm going to push you for a nap of the day. So what would be your best bet if you could only tip up one at the current prices for Saturday?
Can I have 2? Or
okay. No, that's fine. We'll let you have 2.
All right, then. I'd say a plum each way if it rains in the first, and Summergand each way if it rains in the Wokingham. So the 2 big sprints, a plum and Summergand. Perhaps doing each way double, 8 to 1, 16 to 1. 5 places.
That would pay a few quid, wouldn't it?
Well, they're both guaranteed to Sean. I think if it does rain, they'll both go off. I think a plum will be about a 5's chance, and Summergand will be single figures, 8, 10 to 1 at the very least.
Right, I'm off to check the weather. But thank you very much, Andy, for joining us. Great to have you back on the Oddschecker podcast. Make sure you download the app right now if you want Andy's tips, not just for Royal Ascot, but for every day's racing, straight sent to you. The first place you can get them before the prices start to slide as well. Thank you very much, Andy. Best of luck to the rest of the week. Make sure you download the Oddschecker app to all of you listening and watching. Plenty more winners coming. Continue to enjoy the racing at Royal Ascot. Please gamble responsibly, but most importantly, enjoy the races. Enjoy the racing. Hope we've given you a few winners.